What up, everybody? Welcome to Legacy TV and the Convo Podcast. And man, you guys know we've been on a roll over here. We've had some of the best mixed martial artists in the world, the best jiu-jitsu practitioners in the world. And, you know, this gentleman that I got here today, you know, it's an honor. First of all, let me say that. He has been spoke about on the podcast several times. And when they talk about him, let me tell you what they say before we even say his name. But they say in his era, in his time, he was one of the best fighters in his weight class. Fought in the UFC, fought all over, a legend, and it's an honor to have Javier Vazquez in the house. Javi. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. You know, we just had Cesar Gracie on, and he was speaking about you again, which, you know, once he said your name again, in the middle of the podcast, I said to myself, I got to have him on. And then I reached out to you immediately. And thank you for being so easy, accessible, and coming to do the show. It really means a lot to me. Let's take it back, you know, from the beginning, Javi. Like, where did you grow up? What area are you from? Like, what was your upbringing like? How was the household? Like, let's start there, because there's a lot of questions I have, because I didn't get to see too much of you growing up either. So let's take it there.
I mean, how far back do you want to go?
Like, what city are you from? Where'd you grow up?
I just did. You know what's crazy is yesterday I did my 30-year high school reunion.
Oh, yeah?
How funny is that, right? So I ended up, like, the normal way I go, because my mom lives very, very close to the place. I'm within a mile and a half from where I was. And I grew up in that area. So I could already kind of see some of the changes in El Monte. I grew up in El Monte.
El Monte, okay.
And, you know, I ended up getting off on Ramona rather than, you know, Lower Azusa. And I went through, my grandma lived there, and it's so different. It's like a time warp, you know, and I remember, I'm like, this is where I came from. And sometimes it was a trip. It was such a trip. I was, you know, 1.5 miles, 2 miles on the side streets until I got to my destination.
When growing up in that area, was it was it poverty? Was it gangs and stuff? Lots of gangs, right?
Gangs.
Mexican gangs.
Gangs. You know, stay to yourself. You know, you just kind of tried to be street smart, stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
When the lights went down, you went home. You know,
it's a crazy thing to think about. You know, like that there's children out there that are growing up in areas that there's heavy drugs and gangs and you know, just being able to weed yourself through those situations is a battle in its own.
Yeah, know? I mean, you know,
picking the right friends. You know, especially when you're in those areas, you're not surrounded with too much positivity. You know, when there's gangs all around and the kids all want to be part of the gangs. You know,
I think that, you know, I never thought I was going to leave. Right, like I thought that, and like my grandpa used to, we're immigrants from Cuba, right? So my grandpa's like, El Monte's the greatest city in the world. So I grew up thinking that El Monte was the greatest city in the world, right? It's so crazy. And then I like moved out of there and I live in Rancho, up here in Rancho. And I'm like, this is like a different
world.
It's a different world. I'm like, what was my grandpa thinking, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, for him at that time, it was heaven. It was,
yes,
he loved it. Exactly. He loved it. So growing up, are you into sports? Are you like I loved
baseball.
Baseball.
I loved baseball. I started playing baseball when I was 12, and I don't think I was that good at it. I think I had some success in high school. We won the league championships. I ended up hitting a grand slam to win us the league championship, which was cool. And then I had 2 years of junior varsity, which I wasn't a great fan of the coach. And then my senior year, I played varsity, and I was like I had a great game to win us the world championship when I was a senior.
Oh, so you won a world championship,
or not a world championship, a league championship.
A league championship. So, well, still, I bet it felt like a world championship.
I mean, we did good. I had some good performances.
What position did you play? If you don't,
I was an outfielder.
Outfielder, right on. Right.
I had a really good arm, you know, and I couldn't field. Man, the first time when we did league tryouts, like when I first started, I was 12, you know, and they're hitting the ball at you. You got to stand in front of the ball, field the ball, throws it. dude, it looked easy. And then when I've never had that ball hit at me in my life, right, at the time, right? So the guy hits a ball, and I'm like, oh, my God, this is super fast. So I remember that. And I was like, nope, outfield it is. Outfield is much easier.
Yeah, I'll tell you, my memory with baseball is I wanted to play, but then I went to play, and I realized that these kids had all been playing many years, and they were all really good, and I was just going to, not be playing very much. So,
I was fortunate. And I started, I started as a freshman, and then I started about half the games or so, I think, as a senior. But yeah, these guys, I ended up becoming friends with some of the best players, so we were playing all the time. So that helped.
That does
help.
When
when your best friends are the best players,
and you're playing outside of practice as well.
Correct. That's all we did. There was no internet, bro.
That's how you get really good.
That's how you get good. All of your friends are doing the same thing, and I luckily kind of shared something in common with these guys, and we all became friends, and it made it easier, right? It did help, and it made it a little bit easier.
Yeah, and then it also gave you like a group of athlete friends, probably, which kind of, I believe sports is especially if you live in an area with gangs and stuff, sports is like one of the only outlets people have to get away from that.
So it was. I had, and athletes have to keep their grades up. So, it
exactly.
was, no drugs, stay away from drugs because you're an athlete. And, so it was.
So was the goal like for you to be a professional? Like, is that what like your first goal was like when you were playing baseball, or was it just kind of having fun?
I knew that I wasn't, that I was I was playing against guys who have been playing their whole life.
Exactly.
So, it would have been nice.
It's fun to play, but those guys are going to maybe make it, and I'm not. Like,
the guys that we had, our best guys, like, they played college ball, and that's about it. Right?
And then, right.
So, the guys that were, and those are like the exceptional guys played college ball.
And that's as far as
And then you're like, how are you doing in college? It's like, I'm hitting like 250. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not like it was back in the day.
It's the big leagues. So you're not, that's good. Then, so you were in sports already. Now take me, what gets you involved in martial arts? Are you're not getting in any trouble as a youngster? You're staying out of trouble. What draws you into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and martial arts?
I wrestled in high school.
Oh, you as well as playing baseball, you wrestled as well?
Yeah, I wrestled. I did cross country. I did 3 sports.
Oh wow,
for a couple.
You were athlete.
Yeah. I ended up being that way, right? Because it all stemmed back to wrestling. Baseball, I always loved. My freshman year, I kind of missed the window to start. I probably could have done it, but I didn't understand, how to go about it. So I ended up missing my first year, but the next year I wanted to do it for sure.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with it. I became obsessed with it, even more than baseball. And I loved baseball, but I felt I was much better at wrestling than I was at baseball. So, but again, wrestling, you wrestle in college, and
what do you think it was like? Remembering back, like what was it about wrestling that you liked so much? What was it that drew you to it so much?
I like individual sports.
The one-on-one.
I did like the individual sports. I like that there was a team element to it, but you're out there by yourself.
It's different.
You're out there by yourself.
Yeah.
And I liked wrestling. I liked being able to control people and just roughhousing and stuff. I always liked that. I liked pro wrestling when I was a kid. And I never, it helped me grow so much, like self-confidence.
Absolutely.
Because I remember my wrestling coach at my junior year. I was wrestling a kid. I should have beaten him. I should have placed at CIF. And he tells me, you're afraid to win. And it was such a big kind of monumental moment to think, I kind of felt that he deserved it more than me, even though he didn't, for whatever reason. And you just make bad decisions, or your mind just kind of goes in the wrong place during the match, and you end up losing. It's like, well, how did you lose that match?
Yeah.
And I kind of got upset with myself, and I'm like, I could have beaten him. Like, why didn't I beat him? Like, I started questioning it, and then like from that point on, I basically wrestled all the time. I wrestled from the time I was a junior all the way through the time I was a senior, and I would go to Mount Sac, and
And you were competing and everything with.
Yeah, I was competing, but
what did you think about the singlet?
I mean, you wear it when you have to.
I gotta bring it up. This is the whole. I loved wrestling, but when I was a little bit thicker, I was a bigger kid. Yeah. I played football as well, and when they brought the singlets out, they were like, "You guys gotta wear that." I couldn't wear it. No,
wear it when you have to.
We got to pop a little fun in there, but above everything, I think wrestling. It turns you into it turns a young man into a man. You know,
there's no complaining.
Yeah,
just get it done.
Yeah,
work hard. You know, if you work hard, you're not gonna get worse.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, and now, you know, the amount of information. I wish I had the kind of information that's available now.
Right.
It would have saved me a lot of trouble and a lot of just experimenting
to find out.
What the solution was. Right. You know, as I teach today, it's like, I wish I had this information. It would have saved me a lot of problems.
Now, when you're wrestling and competing in wrestling, is it like was there an end goal with it? Like because MMA wasn't, you weren't seeing MMA yet.
No,
you're just kind of wrestling and
there was an overlap.
Did you want to go to like the Olympics, or was just having fun playing sports?
I wrestled in college. I wrestled at Mount Sac too. So it bought me a couple years where I didn't have to grow up. You know what I mean? I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. Yeah. So I wrestled in college, and then when I was in college, I ended up running across the UFC. You know, in '94. So in 94, 95, I think 94, 95. Might have been, 95, 96, I think I came across the UFC, which was like maybe a year or two past.
Right.
So it was UFC 4. So it was after UFC 4, because that's the first one I saw, and I saw the jiu-jitsu guy win. I'm like, oh, this looks
crazy.
Yeah, I'm like, I can wrestle. Wrestling was banging me up, too. You just get banged up. It's so much harder. It's a much higher intensity, but I did like the grappling, so I liked the idea of something that maybe wasn't as, you know, gung-ho.
Yeah.
And you're on your feet, it's much more kind of a punishing situation.
It is.
On the ground, I'm like, oh, this is a lot softer. This is a lot easier. Even though, you know, competing at high levels, you're still revving. It's not like, it's easier.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a little bit easier.
Only someone that actually has done both would be able to say that, because you're 100% right.
I'm not saying jiu-jitsu is easy, but it's easier than wrestling.
Yes, it is. It is.
Easier than wrestling.
And there's a reason why, like, that's good that you bring that. And there's a reason why, when you, like, if any of you don't train jiu-jitsu, like when you go to jiu-jitsu gyms and they spar, most of the time they're starting from the knees and starting their rolls from there. And that's to avoid, you know, the brutality, the injuries. And so wrestling absolutely is a lot more difficult, but it is one of the most important martial arts. It
checks a lot of the boxes, right? So it teaches you to work hard. It teaches you basic balance. It teaches you how to get people to, you know, take people down. Yeah. It teaches you mobility. It teaches you awareness,
right?
Mad awareness. You know what up and down is during scrambles and rolls and transitions. Like,
exactly.
It teaches you a hyper sense of awareness, consciousness.
Right.
It elevates your consciousness through motion and time.
And I believe also if you do wrestling, it gives you an insane amount of grappling strength, which is another thing that it's on its own. Like, you know, you can get strong lifting weights at the gym, and of course it helps, but there's a difference between like a grappling strength and a weightlifting type of strength as well.
There's a connectability, I guess you can say, that you're able to kind of hold the person through motion. Right. So that's a different level of control, and the control is kind of interpreted as strength.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. So you're wrestling, you're competing in college, and then you see the UFC. Do you remember where you were at when you saw it? Like
one of these like Korean, video places, like the rental places that they used to have everywhere. You know, I'm like, what the hell? And so then I watched the first one, and then they had the third one and the second one. So like a day or two later, I went back and got the other two.
You got to see them now.
And I was like, wow, this is cool. So after I was done wrestling, I started jiu-jitsu, because I didn't want to wrestle and do jiu-jitsu at the same time. You don't want to be, going to your back, too comfortably. That's the whole point of wrestling, is to not go to your back. So, so I waited till after I was done. I did the state tournament. I placed at the state, and then I was like, okay, I can start jiu-jitsu.
So you already had it in your mindset that I'm going to do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then when I started with Rodrigo Medeiros, I started with him in
OG
Whittier
legend.
Yeah, in Whittier, and they were all competition guys. So I was like, yeah, perfect, I can do this. So the first tournament they were doing, I remember it was like I had just started. I'd only been training like maybe 2 or 3 months.
Take me through this. Wait, before we get like to the tournament, your first class. Do you remember your first class?
I don't remember the exact first class, but I kind of remember I did pretty well.
You did?
Yeah.
That's the question I have is, it's because, I've been doing jiu-jitsu 20 years. You get a wrestler to come in, I can hold my own, and I'll take care of it. But dude, for people, white, blue belts, they have hard times with wrestlers. You know what I mean? Yeah. They come in there with a wrestling background. They're looking at you like they're looking at the coach like, what in the world? This guy doesn't know anything.
You got to remember the time. This is 1997. I was one of Rodrigo's first guys, right? And it was like there were no blue belt. You were like royalty, right? Purple belt, you never saw a purple belt.
Yeah, you're like God.
Ever. Like that, those guys are like wizards, right? Purple belts, right? So, like white belts, I would generally beat all the white belts. Yeah. Like on day one, I was pretty much beating the white belts.
With just the wrestling experience.
Just the wrestling. Yeah, the wrestling.
That's what I was gonna say. It's crazy, right? When you think about it, like you just having that wrestling background is a good way to start jiu-jitsu.
I mean,
I
think it's the best way to start jiu-jitsu. You know what I mean?
Especially these young kids that are all doing it like this. It's the evolution of it, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what's happening. I think I think it took a long time to get black belts. I think so that time span is we're figuring out ways to cut that time drastically.
Yeah.
To figure out how to get the information downloaded into your mind quicker.
Because it's a lot. It's a lot of information. But if you now when you take away the gi, it's a lot less information, I believe.
Yeah. There needs to be a priority.
Right.
And there was no priority. There's just all the moves, and they were kind of all taught in a way where there was no hierarchy.
Right.
They were just all there.
Right.
And then you got to pick the ones that worked and then figure it out. I'm asking, why are we doing these moves? And that's the next level. We've been out of it long enough. We've gone through the system long enough. So now we're asking, why are we doing it this way? And that's what I'm questioning is, why did we learn the way we learned? And I understand why we did, because, jiu-jitsu was not initially, it was taught privately, one-on-one. So yeah,
out of the garage. From the garages.
It was much easier to kind of do it. But when you start doing group classes, there was nobody really sat down and kind of thought about the progression.
Right.
And then what started happening was tournaments started popping up, and then there was a certain rule set developed for tournaments, so everyone mastered how to win under that rule set.
Under those rule sets.
But what I'm saying currently now, my argument now is, a lot of the rules are developing behaviors that aren't best suited to your interest. I'm
gonna clip this. You're 100% right.
So, I mean, can I give you an example?
Absolutely.
I'll give you an example.
But please preach.
So this was my strategy when I competed. Nobody was stopping me from taking them down. So every match I was up 2-0. I would make you tired, pass your guard. That's 3. I would not do anything else until I put knee on belly, got my 2. Then I would mount. There's 4, and then I would try to force a turn. There's another 4. How many points is that?
It's a lot of points already. you're up on the scoreboard by a lot.
A lot to a little. So now I'm on their back and I'm finishing, and I will say that back mount is far more difficult to finish from than turtle. Far more. Okay. Under my system, it's much easier to finish from turtle. But you're up a lot of points.
And let me say this, I agree with you.
And now I'm up a lot of points. Now here's my way. I say front snap, front headlock, snap them down to their hands, circle behind them, trap their arm, and attack their neck. How many points did I get?
0.
But I am in a better finishing position. And it took me less energy, more efficient, more effective.
Right.
And I get 0 points. Think about that.
You're
I have
right.
a way that's far easier to finish because my perspective is I'm trying to finish. I'm not trying to score a bunch of points.
There you go.
All I do is try to finish.
Which is what I thank you for saying this, because this is what I've been saying a lot on the show is this is watered down jiu-jitsu.
It's not that it's watered down, but the focus is off.
Right, exactly. And this is what I'm saying, because a lot of the guests have been saying lately, which I agree. We don't the level of MMA that we see, the jiu-jitsu that we see in MMA is terrible. And
I've been saying that forever.
And why is it? Because you guys the training has changed.
The focus is wrong. Let me explain. We have a body, 2 arms, 2 legs. What body part gives you the most amount of problems in any grappling, or 99% or 98% of the grappling configurations? What body part causes your problems in grappling?
Your arms.
Your arms and your hands, right?
Right.
But where do we spend our time in jiu-jitsu? What body part do we most focus on?
Legs.
In jiu-jitsu? The focus is completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're fighting, what should the focus be, on the legs or on their hands?
On their hands.
So that's what I said. So all I do is control your hands. And I've been told by lots of people in the industry that I probably had one of the best jiu-jitsu guards for MMA. I didn't take damage.
And I agree, because many people have said that on the show.
my guard was designed to not take damage. That's the whole point. Right. So I developed it over time, and I've got it kind of systemized in a way where I didn't take damage. But that's not what is developed. That is not the type of guard that's developed in jiu-jitsu. And you have these guys thinking that their guard is good for MMA.
Right.
When it is terrible.
It's terrible for
MMA because
and
of
for
their
the
behavior.
street. And let's be honest. For the main reason, what I tell my students this all the time, a lot of the jiu-jitsu that you see, in these tournaments is never gonna work in a street fight or an MMA fight.
Why? You got to ask yourself why you're making the choices you're making. Why are you making the decision to do that? Most of these guys, this kind of guard is a high guard, utilizing the legs to submit the opponent. The legs can be in a couple of different locations. The legs can control the leg, the legs can control the waist, or the legs can control the head and the shoulder, head and the arm.
Right.
That's it. What else you got?
Nothing.
Pretty much that's it. That's how your legs function. But what most people don't understand is that when you use your legs as your primary source of control, the level of energy is far higher than using your chest and your hands as your primary source of control. So when you're controlling with your legs, what muscle groups are engaged in order for that to happen? Your abs, your hips, your glutes, your thighs, your hamstrings, your calves,
everything.
50% of your body has to be in tension, and you have to be able to sustain or regulate that tension through your breath in order to submit the guy.
Absolutely.
It is labor intensive to fight that way. My way was a little bit easier. My way was defend strikes and hit the guy to get the guy to back off of me.
Right.
And then once he backs off, I can stand up or look to come up on top, which was the way I fought. Watch my fights.
Yeah. Tony Ferguson as well, right? The elbows.
Using Antonio McKee's the one that showed me how to really use
shout
my
out,
guard.
Shout out my brother Antonio McKee.
Yeah.
He's been on the show a couple times, and AJ.
His idea, he gave me the idea, and I think I perfected the idea. But he's like, I like to have a guard that is exactly what I don't like when I'm on top. So he kind of reverse engineered it, what guys were doing that he didn't like, and then he incorporated that into the guard.
Absolutely.
I create angles and hit you. And then I slip and control the distance and the range and control your hands. I control your hands from the shoulders out. So I know that I'm shelling in a way that it's hard. I'm not saying I don't ever get hit, but the shots are so infrequent based on the way I behave that guys become so discouraged. It takes so much energy to land the one shot that they're just like, forget about it. I'll back away. Great. You're backing off of me. I want you to back off of me too.
Exactly.
So my behavior is forcing that. Now, how many points did I score?
Nothing.
But it's an effective way to fight.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, the focus, I think that the jiu-jitsu is very nearsighted in the way that they only focus on the things that are going to work in the tournament setting, and they can't see beyond that to the true application of what we're trying to do, or I'm trying to do.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think I remember coming up, there wasn't as many tournaments. And I don't, coming up in my gym, I'm a lot of you guys might be going through this now. When I was coming up in my gym, for example, you want to test for a blue belt or a purple belt, or brown belt, black belt. Well, guess what? You got to be able to show my coach that you can use jiu-jitsu when you're getting punched. So part of the test would be, for example, two guys get boxing gloves on. You go lay down in the middle of the mat. They mount you and go. They start to punch you, and you have to use jiu-jitsu to be able to stop them and, reverse the position and submit. And I feel like that has completely gone away from jiu-jitsu because when you only start worrying about going to a tournament and winning by points and a 5-minute round or 7-minute round, and you start taking away the fact that you have to finish the guy and the self-defense aspect of jiu-jitsu, which that's why, like I said a little bit ago, I feel like it has watered down. The tournament scene has watered down the level of jiu-jitsu for actual fighting.
It has a different... You're starting to see it change now a little bit and go more towards submission only. First of all, because it's more exciting. Second of all, it's more like the way you roll at the academy. The way guys compete is not at all the way they roll at an academy.
Thank you for saying that. At all. Unless you're like, you got a big ego and you're just trying to beat everybody in your gym. Like that's not how. Yeah. It's like.
I mean, look, man. I'll let you. I've rolled with everybody basically. I've rolled with a lot of good guys, and world champions, whatever. And I don't make the battle be about passing my guard. I'll let you pass my guard. Go ahead, pass my guard. Start. You want to start mounted? You want to start? I don't care. My goal is to feel what you're doing, to continue to refine and test the system that I've developed. That's it. That's all I really care about. If you can beat me or maybe show me something new that I haven't seen before, but. It's difficult to see new things when I don't change my behavior.
Right.
So I make the battles be about anything other than passing my guard. So once you pass my guard, you can pass my guard 600 times. The second I take your back, trap your arm, and attack your neck, that's the only thing you're going to remember. You're not going to remember that you were beating me. You're going to remember, like, how did he get to my back? Yeah. I couldn't stop him from trapping my arm, and I couldn't stop him from attacking my neck. Yeah, that's all that matters.
That's what they will remember. Exactly.
That's all that matters.
Right.
So I think that people are a bit blinded with, again, the rule set. It's what the rule set has done is it has laid a foundation of what is positive based on a fictitious reward system, right? I told you, I snap people down, circle behind, trap their arm, and attack their neck. What is my reward is the fact that I know it's effective, I know that it's efficient, and I know that I'm going to get it. That's what's rewarding. It's not rewarding because it's necessarily exciting. It's not rewarding because it's going to, I get a certain point or medal because I win it. The journey itself is rewarding enough for me because of the effectiveness and efficiency of what the journey allowed me to see.
Absolutely.
That's what's important.
Absolutely.
And that's what's missing. The spirituality is what's been missing out of jiu-jitsu, the real connection, the emotion, the breath, understanding how energy, this is all energy. This is just energy. And when you start to realize that The rule set teaches you to dissipate energy everywhere. It doesn't teach you to hone your energy. Time, the element of time in a match, the shortened time, does not allow the the process to take place.
It doesn't.
Because everything is rushed. Everything is speed, hold, strong. But if I say, let's just roll till somebody taps, now you have to be more conscious of the decisions you're making with your energy.
Absolutely.
And that is what jiu-jitsu is about. So you're almost like, it's teaching you to think. It's hard to say the wrong way, but in a less efficient way.
You're 100% right. I agree with you, and I've been saying this too, and you know, the thing is, like we said earlier, you've seen it in MMA now. You know, it's like
just, you're learning from the same people.
It's like one of the things that it drives me crazy too, and like I show my students all the time. You'll see guys in the half guard, and their legs are wide open. I mean, you literally everywhere. Just whip your leg over and pass. Like it's insane.
It's everywhere.
I'm like, these guys are in the UFC. Like, how? You know?
because the average person has a hard time holding them. They're strong. They're fast. They're athletic. But if you understand how to hold people, you can hold them too. It's wild. Like it's hard for me to watch MMA.
Yeah.
Like it really is. And my students are like, why don't you watch? Or I mean, I watch the big fights, but it's tough. It's tough. The rule set of MMA itself has created a particular kind of style of fighting.
And they're gearing it more and more towards strikers now.
Of course. There's a few rules that you can change that will change the sport completely.
Oh yeah.
There's just a handful of rules. Take off the gloves.
Yep.
One.
Absolutely.
Knees on the ground to a grounded opponent. You shoot, you're stuck on your knee, you can knee him.
Time limit.
Go north south, you can knee him.
Yep.
Right? Yep. Up kicks to the face when the person is on their knees.
Oh yeah.
That's the jiu-jitsu's that's the guard's biggest weapon.
Yep.
Is being able to kick people when they're on their knees. Now there's no more ground and pound from the knees. The guy has to stand up. Yeah. Yeah. So it gives you a little bit more time to react.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. I mean, you know, it's just sad I got into jiu-jitsu because of MMA. I wanted to do MMA. But then I got into MMA and I fell in love with jiu-jitsu, you know, and that became my, not only I'm good at everything else, but jiu-jitsu became, oh, you're really good at this. You gotta become a teacher. And for me, it bothers me to see that, you know, jiu-jitsu created MMA. There would be no MMA. There would be none of that if it wasn't for the beauty of jiu-jitsu. And I feel like
they're trying to take it away.
Exactly. They're taking it. You're taking it away. The guy. Even Joe Rogan says it all the time. He says you stand the guy up. If a guy can take you down and hold you there and punch you, you know, even if it doesn't knock you out, if he can just take you down and hold you there and punch on you for 5 minutes, well, tough. Figure out how to get up.
Yeah.
Figure out how to get up so you can win the fight.
Because it's not as exciting. You have to understand that the UFC is not a sport.
Right.
It's not a sport. It's an entertainment platform with real fights.
Right.
That's what it is. Because you can't the promoter can't control the rankings.
Right.
He can put whoever he wants, which is what they're doing. That's not a sport. I'm not saying that it's not real, because guys do fight, and guys do win, and guys do lose, but it's pretty easy to protect guys and keep them away from certain styles and certain matchups.
Alex Pereira?
There's a lot of guys.
No offense, I'm just saying.
There's a lot of guys. Even when I was fighting, they weren't going to put me with some of their guys, because I'm like, I'm going to take them down. I will take this guy down and tap him in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that's exactly why you're not fighting him.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So it's not about who's the best.
Yeah, you're right. It's a popularity contest nowadays.
Marketing.
And the thing is, it hurts to hear people say, you know, oh, the level of the jiu-jitsu. Well, part of it comes with, I believe, in the gyms, in the jiu-jitsu gyms as well. I believe it's got to start for it to change. It's got to start there, because you guys got to also remember, like, I'm doing a disservice as a jiu-jitsu instructor if I don't teach my students self-defense jiu-jitsu. If I'm just there to teach them how to win at a tournament, then I've lost completely what this was all about.
I mean,
because
the vast majority of instructors don't even teach that mindset.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It completely got lost, and the main reason why you guys are doing this is a martial art, and it's for self-defense, and that should be above everything. Your focus shouldn't be going to the gym. Oh, I want my guys to win medals so I can have a bigger school. This is a self-defense martial art. This was you could save somebody's life with this. I had my brother Georgie Karakanian on the show. He fought in Bellator. I'm sure you know Georgie.
He's a student of mine.
Is he? He's a police officer, sheriff now, right? Yeah. So, you know, and he says it himself, like, nobody should be a police officer unless they have a blue belt.
Duh.
You know what I mean? Like,
crazy.
This is a martial art that can save people's lives. That can, it's just, I feel like the tournament scene is just kind of it's watering it down, and it's got to come from the instructors. The instructors got to be the one to make the changes.
You know.
And us having a voice, the OGs in the game, bringing it to light also is going to, I believe, will make a difference.
It's good to understand the mindset. Yeah. At the very least, understand and have the awareness of the mindset, just a survival mindset of just don't get caught, understand how not to get caught. But it's not just don't get caught, understand how not to get hit.
There you go. That's exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Because if I'm sure if you have a black belt and he's out there in the street and someone came to attack him and start, they don't know jiu-jitsu, but they're coming to punch him or whatever, kick him, whatever the physical altercation is, I'm sure a black belt under you is going to be able to handle that type of situation.
When you understand, it's baked into the cake. The fact that I teach such refined hand control, what are you going to hit me with?
That's what I'm saying.
So my grappling is already so hand-based, so heavy hand-based, like my control on the hands is already so ingrained into every single thing that we do that, of course, I'm not going to get hit because that's the whole focus.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, like, I remember, like, Eddie Bravo told me years ago, oh, you know, talk about your punch defense system. I'm like, well, the punch defense system it's everything I do because it's at the root. Like I told you, the desired result. It's part of what the desired results are. Those don't turn on and off. Those are ingrained inside of the operating system. It's how I function. It's how I see the world.
Right.
And it works with strikes, without strikes, with gi, without gi. My game is consistent.
There you go. That's how it should be.
Yeah.
And that's what I say to my guys too. Like, I could have a gi on, I could have a sweater on, I could have shorts on, the t-shirt off. All of it's my game is still going to be my game. It's still going to be effective. It's still going to work. I could fight in the street with it. And that's what I believe. You know, I just want all of the people that represent jiu-jitsu to have that same, you know, confidence that, you know, if the guy's going to punch me, where'd your black belt go now?
I think
and I've seen it happen, bro. I've seen it happen, you know, and I'm not going to name any names, but I've seen world champions, jiu-jitsu world champions curl up in a ball when
Correct.
They started.
I remember I saw somebody once who's a very decorated guy. And I wasn't super sold because I'm like, look at I watched the matchups that he got. This is many years ago. And I remember he got hit and dropped. And I see his hands start to reach for the gi. Swear.
Oh, yeah.
And then he got followed up and finished. I'm like, instead of covering his head and rolling with shots, he starts reaching for the cloth. People don't understand that the behavior it's autopilot.
Yes,
it
is.
When you get stunned, you go back into autopilot. Instead of covering and recovering, he started opening and reaching.
Yep.
So to me, it's obvious. I mean, I've known this forever. My whole game, I mean, yeah, I won a lot of tournaments. I had success in just pure grappling, yes. But I always knew what it was designed to do.
But you also had a lot of success in MMA.
because of
your style,
because of the way that the style
so
evolved.
so take me through that, because we didn't even really get into that too much. You started to jiu-jitsu from your wrestling background. You started training with Madero Brothers. How do you get into MMA? What was it?
Oh man, it was crazy. We did back in the day. There was like underground fights everywhere, right? So, and I was always in shape. I was always training, and it was like we went to this underground show, and my buddy did like a grappling match, and then that same show, like the next show, they were doing slap fighting, and I'm like, oh, I can beat all these guys. so I would just take them down and just tap them, you know. So I started my first MMA fight, or it was like a pancrase style fight, like open hand slap fighting, was in '98. I started in '97,
which is combat jiu-jitsu now. Basically.
Combat jiu-jitsu now.
Yeah.
But we started standing, right? But I mean, maybe a year, maybe 8 or 9 months to a year from the time I started training to have my first fight.
And you, like, this was the plan going along, or you just it just randomly happened?
Totally random. I would get, hey, they need a fighter today. You know, I'd show up there and just do it. It was fun. And then, you know, when King of the Cage started, I didn't do their first show. I did Terry's first show, which was called Empire One, which was in a
shout
ring.
out King of the Cage and shout out Terry.
And I was the main event on that show. And then
Terry's another guy that brought you up.
Yeah.
And always says you were one of the best guys in that. Yeah.
He was always a big fan of mine. He always believed in me. He thought I can beat the best guys. I thought I can beat the best guys. So, and he was like trying to make the fights happen, and for one reason or another, whatever, they never happened. But I mean, some of the guys I did end up fighting later in my career, and I beat them. So, he always believed in my skill, and he always thought highly of my ability to be competitive with the best guys. So it was nice. It's nice to.
Yeah, and it's crazy, you know, going through this podcast and having as many people on the show as I had. That, you know, your name just rings bells, you know, in that time era. And so when you're competing in that time, like, take me through. Were you making any money? Was it
no.
Like, it was zero money, right? Like, no. Barely anything, right?
Oh yeah, like my first 5 fights, I didn't make any money.
You guys hear that? You know, a lot of you guys are spoiled now.
Yeah, and I won. I think I won all of them, or I might have lost one of them by decision.
I'll get your record right now. Go ahead.
But no, these are. I don't even think these were on my record. No, the ones
these
before,
were before?
I won. Yeah, it was before. It was like underground, bro. Underground. Yeah. So I think I at that point, I think I had like lost one. I fought another black belt. When I was a purple belt, I fought a black belt.
In MMA or in jiu-jitsu?
No, in like slap fighting. It was at Kaj's Cage Combat. I fought somebody there. It was crazy.
Now you're at the time you're coming up, like, was there a man? Was there someone that you wanted to fight? Was there
Jens Pulver?
You were looking to fight Jens, right?
I wanted Jens.
Yeah,
I knew I could beat Jens.
And like, I have your record right here. So you have your total record that's shown is 16-5.
Yeah.
As far as, but there's some names here, like beating Jens Pulver at that time. He was the man. Right, him and BJ were kind of the man in that weight class.
Yeah, I competed against BJ too. BJ knows who I am too. I'd love to roll with BJ one day again. You know, maybe if I go to Hawaii, I'll roll with him.
Yeah, BJ is a stud. Yeah. How, did you guys compete in jiu-jitsu against each other? Or?
Yeah, when we were blue belts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he beat me when we were blue belts.
Well, how did that match go? Do you remember?
He beat me. he ended up taking my back and beating me. Like, but I gave him a decent fight. He's
very, very flexible, right?
Yeah, he was really good,
especially in those times. Like,
yeah, he was really good.
It kind of sucks to see the guys that were like jiu-jitsu guys, like they all kind of get away from striking later on in their career. Like Damian Maia was another one that
you have to,
you know,
guy. Let me tell you, I had to start. I mean, I always worked on my stand-up and I kept it a secret. I just never showed it, and my friends were like, "Knock this guy out." And I'm like, "No, I'm not taking the chance." Why? I can take him down and tap him. I
got a skill that's better than theirs.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not gonna, and I always said, I'm not gonna show them until they force me to show it. And then by the time they forced me to show it, there's no video on me, so I can get away with it. And it did happen like that, where guys were like, come up to me after the fight, and they're like, "You're a lot better than we thought you were. I thought I was gonna knock you out." And I laughed. I go, "Yeah, not even close, right?" Not even close. But you have to. Guys start getting really good at stopping takedowns. It's like, guys, you have to be better at striking to counteract guys being able to camouflage the shots.
Yeah. But I always say, don't forget what got you there. Don't forget what got you there. Now, for you, like your last fight was, this is one of the things I wanted to ask you about today is like you finally got to the UFC and you fought Joe Daddy. Shout out Joe Daddy. I just seen Joe Daddy at Jiu-Jitsu World League, and he's supposed to come down soon too. And you beat him. And at that time, Joe had a big name, right? He was
for a belt.
He was one of the top guys that were pushing him because he was off the Ultimate Fighter show, all that. What happened after that? Like, were you kind of getting close to the end of your MMA career?
I retired like 3 times, and the first couple times were not because I wanted to, but because I just had to. I tore my ACL like twice in 9 months. So that was the second and third time. I tore it once, had a full recovery, and then I tore it in the Alberto Crane fight, and that really messed it up. And after that, I just wasn't able to shoot the way I could shoot, and so I was already starting to become a little bit more limited in my ability.
It's the one thing I gotta say that training as long as I have is the one thing that is the hardest on our bodies is the knees. And it's you guys please be careful with them because I've torn my the ligaments in my right and my left. I just tore the meniscus, the MCL. Like it's such
it affects your lifestyle.
Yeah, it does. And you've only got 2 legs, and once you start amputating them and you start doing surgeries and stuff, you're never the same.
Yeah. So I took 3 years off, and I ended up winning I think at that point I won the ADCC trials during that time. And I still felt I was better than everybody. I still felt like I could still beat these guys. And the WEC was coming up, and I'm like, I could beat these guys.
Yeah.
And it kind of really irked me that I wasn't fighting. So I ended up coming back. And then, I fought in the WEC. 2 of the fights that I lost, I don't think I lost. And neither did Sean Shelby, the promoter. And that's a vastly different record, right? That's a vastly different kind of career trajectory. And I was getting banged up, and I could see that they were protecting certain guys away from me, and it's like I've been fighting forever, so it's not like
you're not a newbie.
I'm not a newbie.
Yeah.
So and I could tell that they weren't really giving me the fights that I wanted, and I ended up fighting in the UFC. I'm like, what am I doing it for? If I'm not gonna be fighting the best guys and getting paid the money that I think I deserve, I'm getting paid. It's like, what am I doing it for? It's hard on my body.
Yeah.
I was training when I trained for a fight, I trained a lot. I trained really hard to the point sometimes I overtrain and get hurt and stuff. So, I just had to change my focus. I was 34. I'm like, how much longer do I want to keep doing this? I never got knocked out in fights. I never got finished in fights. But
yeah, that's when I was looking through your record. The only way people beat you seemed like by split decision. Yeah. I'm like, damn, there's a lot of split decisions. Like, that's crazy.
And you can think, what if those went to me? Now all of a sudden my record looks a lot different. Right?
Yeah, crazy.
So, I had to shift my focus. So then that's when I started kind of focusing on the academy and focusing on curriculum and what I wanted to leave as a legacy behind as to what my brand of jiu-jitsu, why was it different, why was it important, and what my contribution to the community was going to be after I had gotten sick, because it was like that kind of made me realize if I'm gone, there's nothing really left behind. And that's when I started writing, and that's when I started to kind of put together the master plan.
It's pretty sick, bro. Yeah. And so as you transition from fighting and I'm done, the goal is to become a spreader of knowledge, and not only
the best spreader of knowledge.
And not just that, but do you believe, because let me tell you this, right? For me, I love martial arts. I love fighting. I love that part of it, of course. But I love what this martial arts did for me as a human being more than I love being a good fighter. I'm very proud to be able to handle myself and be able to fight and walk in a room and feel confident. To know if I walk down an alley and I see a lady getting attacked, I can go help her. I'm very proud of that. But I'm much more proud and thankful for the person I was and what jiu-jitsu and MMA did to me as a man. Because I lived a troubled life. I lived, I was going in and out of jail when I was younger. And I honestly don't know what would have happened to me if it wasn't for jiu-jitsu and MMA. And not only are you able to, of course, pass the effective style of jiu-jitsu on, but do you also believe that one of the most important things you could be doing is being someone's mentor, being someone's coach? I know we're only sometimes teaching them jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, but I believe it's a lot more deeper than that.
I think that I try to pass a lifestyle. I try to pass a way of living. I've got like nurses and respiratory therapists that come to me. They're like, because I've been told that the way I do jiu-jitsu is very kind of like engineer. I break it down like an engineer break it down, right?
I agree.
So so they can kind of take my perspective and then they're applying it in their life, because it's just mindset. What I've realized is that the biggest changes in my jiu-jitsu has been the way I think and what I'm focusing on, and that has really changed the results of what I'm doing. But it's highly efficient. I'm not just efficient on the mat. I'm efficient when I'm editing. I'm efficient when I'm doing laundry. It's just a way of thinking that you apply to every aspect of your life. So, and the fact that my diet is so kind of restrictive and so disciplined, everything has to be systemized. So again, it's efficiency, and then like the food that I eat is very kind of it's highly dense in nutrients. So everything is kind of like optimized.
The lifestyle is optimized.
The lifestyle's optimized, right? Yeah. So and they see that and they know that. So they kind of, the way of thinking, the biggest surprise, pleasant surprise that I got after teaching what I've been teaching, because I know that it's what I'm saying is going to happen is real. Then when the students start seeing it, they're like, I see it, right? I see the path. I call it the central path. I see the path. And then they start encountering problems and like, I came across this problem and this is a solution that I came up with. What do you think? And I'm like, yeah. So the biggest surprise was that it became a self-correcting system. I've taught the students to be able to think in a way where they can solve their own problems logically and efficiently. So it's the mindset of being able to resolve the problems based on a base level of information that I've kind of put down. And it translates into nutrition, and it translates into, breath work and jiu-jitsu and being present when you're rolling, because it's not, everything is so explosive with most people. They don't realize that there is always a next best step. Whether you're able to reach that next spot or not, there's always a next best step. And I think people get lost and focus on things that aren't that next best step. They're just kind of trying to figure out what move and what to do, rather than they need to look at it from a bigger perspective. And that's what I try to tell my guys, is that this is taught from a global perspective. The reason that it works so well, and the reason that, that things are the way they are, is because, and I tell you what I tell you, is because I'm not looking at it from a very narrow-minded kind of point of view. I'm looking at it from a perspective of where I'm going.
Right.
I'm generating where I'm going. And when you start to kind of think in this way, that this isn't just a jiu-jitsu specific situation, this is a life situation where you're planning it ahead and you're kind of working towards the goal. First, understand the goal and then work towards the goal and then try to find the most efficient way to the goal. So it's still the same way of thinking. So it's like reverse engineering. It's seeing what you want first and then working towards that rather than just randomly making decisions along the way, and wherever you land, you land. I think there's a lot of that in jiu-jitsu where guys are going for arm bars, and I'm like, why are you choosing to go for an arm bar from that position, that decision? Why did you make that decision? And they're like, I don't know. Like, is that the most effective move that you can do from that situation, or is just what you just saw? And it's, I guess I just saw it. I know which moves are going to be most effective. I know which ones. Think of it this way. If you're on top of a guy and you go for an arm bar, most of the time you're chest to chest when you go for an arm bar. Maybe chest to back, but chest to chest. You're losing what I call one of the core ground positions to go to a supplemental position. An arm and a leg are supplemental positions, right. My perspective. What you're not realizing is that you are shifting the primary source of control from your chest and your hands to the legs. Mm-hmm. So you're controlling the guy. You're thinking, I'm going to get the armbar, but the entire control mechanism has shifted from your chest and your hands, which are much more reliable and consistent, to the legs, which now you're having to engage 50% of your body in order to just sustain the pressure. Yeah. Right? So why are you making that decision? Right. Why is the armbar what you're choosing to do rather than taking their back and choking their neck? It's way easier to do that and more consistent and more efficient to do that. Why? Because I just saw it and I went for it. You're aborting the base layer of control to go to some other form of control.
Right. And I see that a lot. I'll see a lot of people in a great position diving on an arm when they don't even have the arm 100%. Then they lose position. They're on the bottom, and so I agree. It's and that translates to a lot of things in your life. When you learn how to control your mind like that, I believe, and like the way you say it like that also makes me think of something my coach used to say to me when I was coming up under him, and he used to tell people, life is a lot like jiu-jitsu. You might get mounted. The guy might be very heavy. You might be tired. He might be sinking in a choke, but that's when you got to remember your snake move. That's when you got to remember how to get out. And there's always a way for you to move. There's always a way for you to win, and just don't give up. And so I believe your system, it entails going for the most efficient things, and if you can translate into that into your life as well, which is something that these amazing people, these amazing martial artists, because of the time on the mat, it also helps you to deal with things in life, and that's why I think is the most important thing that you're doing.
Because you're shifting the way you're thinking about problems. Mm-hmm. You know that there's always a next best step. No matter what position we land in, there's always a next best step. Absolutely. There's always a best way out of something. There's always a best escape. Yep. There just is. There's an escape that has a high probability of success. All you got to do is just get over this one little hurdle. Right. So it's not like getting out's the problem. It's just getting to this hurdle. If you get good at winning that little battle, that crucial battle, I call that a crucial battle, right? Mm-hmm. If you get good at winning, if you understand first identifying where the crucial battles are in each configuration, and then just get good at that, you don't have to do a bazillion moves.
100%.
So it simplifies the problem because you know what the battle truly is. The root battle, the core battle, the crucial battle, you know what that is, and you're good at winning it 80% of the time, 85% of the time, even 60% of the time. If you can win certain battles 60% of the time, that's still a high probability of success.
Absolutely.
Right? So everything I try to do is I say, forget about all the other things. Give me the 60, 70, 85%, 90% stuff. And you're thinking, well, how can something work 90% of the time? From certain positions, I'm going to win 90% of the time. If I'm mounted on you and I wanted to pin your wrist, How often am I going to win that battle?
Yeah,
100% of the time. The vast majority of the time. Are you going to straighten your arm? Yeah, you'll probably straighten your arm, but I'm going to pin it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to probably be able to hold it.
Yeah.
It's just understanding which battles are truly important and then just forcing the battles to go there. So again, I'm limiting I'm increasing my success rate and lowering my failure rate. You can live life that same way. You can follow people that are successful and kind of emulate what they're doing because you know that it's working for them, rather than just following whoever and then hoping for the best because you don't know where they're gonna be either. So I think it's a lot of the problems have already been solved. I think that people are people come up with solutions to problems that shouldn't even exist.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So there's all these moves, but I'm like, you're never going to get there because I'm stopping this. It stops this whole wing of everything you're doing.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. How do you stop spider guard? Do you know how to stop spider guard? How to stop people from never having to deal with spider guard again? Do you like passing spider guard?
Absolutely. The main thing I always tell everybody: don't let the guys control your hands, your sleeve grips. The main thing that I focus on when I'm on top of somebody in somebody's guard is I don't let them control my posture or my hands.
I have a very different perspective. If you're gonna put me in spider guard, you can control my sleeves. But what has to happen next is your feet have to
connect. Yeah, right.
So how do we stop that? If you grab the pants, which 90% of everybody does, the feet have a lot of slack in the pants to roll over and move around.
Right.
So grabbing the pants, not only is it fatiguing and damaging to your knuckles and your hands, right, and your fingers, but it's also not that effective because you have to use so much strength to stop it from moving that it's inefficient.
Right.
Not efficient.
Right.
I'll grab the tops of your toes. Now get your feet away.
Yeah.
Now I am optimizing the control on the foot, and there's no way, even if you have my sleeves, if I control your feet, there is no spider guard.
There is none. Yeah.
It's impossible. So I don't have to worry about your spider guard game, no matter how good your spider guard game is. Ever, because you're never going to put me in spider guard because of the way I control your feet. And then I stuff your foot and I start splitting your guard and I start passing your guard. Or even more so, the biggest thing I learned about guard is the battles that we're choosing. And for many years, I would split the guard. Prior to splitting the guard was the way to do it. There's no sweep. There's very few sweeps. They can only go one way. There's no armbar. There's no triangle. Very limited platform when you split somebody's guard with your leg, right? But I'm still having to deal with their legs. So I can be really good at splitting and really good at passing, but I'm still engaging their legs. What my focus is passing the guard is not so much the legs. It's forcing you to face me. It is the twisting transition. I make you. Is it better if you're facing me? For me, or is it better if you're facing away from me?
For you?
For me.
Away from me.
Of course. So I don't engage you when I'm facing you. I rotate you in a way. I force you to rotate in a way away from me. And the whole battle is you facing away from me. If you understand how to control the legs, I'll show you. I'll show you and you can share it later. Controlling the twisting transition solves all of your problems. There is no guard if you're facing away from me. Right. So then the game becomes, how do I get you to face away from me? And looking at it through that simple lens, now I don't have to worry about butterfly guard. I don't have to worry about spider guard. I don't have to worry about a closed guard. I don't have to worry about all of these problems because your legs aren't even facing me. Makes sense. Obviously passing the guard is going to be rudimentary.
Absolutely.
So then the question becomes, how do you get them to face away from you? And it's easier than you think. I call it common sense guard passing, right? It's common sense, but it's not common sense. It's almost like a play on the words because it's not common sense. And when I started to do this and I started teaching my guys, like, let's do it this way rather than that way, they're like, oh my God. And then guys that don't know, easy.
Yeah.
And it is a fatiguing mechanism. It is making the guy on the bottom so tired because their legs are involved. I call it central point engagement. Their hips, their abs, their legs, everything is engaging and straining. And I'm able to rev at a much lower RPM than they are, based on the fact that they're stopping this twist. And people don't even understand why it's working, but they just know that they're losing.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense, brother, and I think you have a lot to offer the jiu-jitsu community. Period. I think you're very articulate with the way you look at it, the way you look at jiu-jitsu as a system, your system. I want to thank you for giving myself, some of your knowledge today. We are getting kind of close to the end. We try to keep these like about an hour. Before you go, I do want to ask you, like, how can people follow more? Where can they shout out your website if you have one? Where can the people learn from you? Because you have a lot to offer, and how can we keep in touch with what you're doing as far as technique and all that?
I'm doing the best I can to get my stuff out. JV Jiu-Jitsu Online is like the home where I'm putting
JV Jiu-Jitsu
Online.com.
Yeah, we're gonna put that in the link in the description of all of his links as well, so you guys can get to it.
Yeah, JV Jiu-Jitsu Online is where I'm putting up the system. I have seminars that I've taught, and I've edited those up as pillars to basically introductions to the central path, right? So the side mount system is the meat grinder. It's a fatiguing system. I did a couple seminars on that. That's on jvjujitsuonline.com.
Are you available for seminars as well?
Available for seminars.
Available for seminars.
At JV Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram, at Javier Showtime on X.
We're gonna and guys, like I said, we're gonna put all of Javi's links in the description, so you guys can just check the description out and find all his links there as well.
So we're putting everything online. I just did a course with Artist Skill, who does a lot of good work, called The Principles of Dominance and Control, which is on artistskill.com. And that also discusses the central path. It kind of goes through each position, each configuration. I kind of show you kind of what works best from each position. So that's like, I think that's a 5-hour course. So it's a very extensive course, and it kind of, again, lays a foundation of where we're working from. I think that I always work from the central path, and then I try to stay as close to the path as possible, and things will pop up. But because I'm fighting the way I'm fighting and doing the things I'm doing, it's very predictable. The behavior, the opponent behavior is very predictable, and that course kind of really lays out a good foundation from each configuration.
Hell yeah, and trust me, you guys can all learn. I know I can learn something, and you guys can all learn something as well. So make sure you guys follow this man, a real OG of the sport. And it's been an honor, brother. Thank you for blessing us with some of your knowledge and being here, telling your story a little bit. And God bless you. And, guys, make sure you follow him on Instagram. Check out the links in the description. And if you guys want to see, I keep telling you guys, like, jiu-jitsu, it's a lot deeper than what you guys are seeing today. So take a look around and get some knowledge from some of the real OGs of the sport, because as you see, me and him believe in a lot of the same things as far as where jiu-jitsu is headed and what it's lost and what it needs to be. So thank you, Javier Vazquez, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Convo Podcast. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, tell your mama and your daddy. Peace.
Hi, this is Arash Hashemi. For over 20 years, my practice has been dedicated to representing people accused of crimes. There's no criminal case we don't handle here. From a simple petty theft to serious charges such as murder, I have the knowledge and experience needed to help guide you through the court system. Here at my firm, we treat you like family. We listen to your story, help you understand your rights, guide you through every step of the court system, answer your questions, and make sure you know what you're facing so you can sleep easy at night. If you or if anybody you know needs an attorney, remember, better call Hash.
What up, y'all? Come check out my boys over here at the I Smoke. Come on in, man. We got everything here in Santa Ana. You guys come down to the shop, tell them Legacy sent you, and man, we got everything you can think of. Take a look around, bro. Go check out all the products, man. Y'all need to tap in with my boys. They look after us. They check the Convo podcast, and we love them. So support those that support us. All right, peace, West Coast. What up, everybody? Quick second out of the podcast to shout out one of my sponsors. Man, after 20 years of Jiu-Jitsu and MMA, my body's messed up all the time. Shoulders, knees, back, neck, you name it. I only go to one place. They've been taking care of me for years, and they'll take care of you. Home of some of the best fighters in the world, best UFC fighters, best mixed martial arts fighters in the world. Kessler Wellness. Come check them out if you ever get injured. They're going to take care of you just like they take care of me. Come on in.
Ain't no me. Hey. And I know it. Watching everything that I do.
Shout out to the homeboy Damo and Big Joker, Big Box.
They been watching, hating on everything I do. They don't wanna see me shining. They just wanna see me struggling, and I know it. They been watching, hating on everything I do. They don't wanna see me shining. They just wanna see me struggling, and I know it. I'm drunk all the time these days. It seems like I'm caught in a maze and trying to make it out with.
Man, I feel way better. Y'all come check out OC Fight Docs, Kessler Wellness. Appreciate you, Doc. You're the best in the business.
I guess they mad when you a grown man. They shoot you down in your homeland. Or you're facing life and got a program.